Hi guys, it's Shayla again from Freckle Finance, and for my first pregnancy finance related video, I thought I would cover the topic of higher education, what we plan to do, etc, etc. If you're new to this channel, make sure you click that subscribe button below. I upload videos on personal finance, financial independence, lifestyle videos, and pregnancy and becoming a family of 3 videos. So I want to start off with saying, while there is definitely a value in higher education, not all higher education has much of a value anymore, especially if you're not someone super wealthy who can afford to take on lots of debt, or the family pay tons and tons of money towards a degree that's just not going to land them a job. For example, I studied psychology. It was a science degree and I have a biology minor, and I took the first job that seemed interesting enough that it became available to me because I didn't want to be picky. But I will tell you, I did interview for jobs in the psychology science field, like research and stuff, and not only did they not pay very well, but they were very, very hard to get. So while I don't specifically regret getting my degree, when it comes to the value of getting an education, it might not have been the best choice for me. Specifically, I don't think I needed a university degree for any of the jobs I ever worked, but most of the time, some type of higher education was required. With that being said, we are still going to save money for our child's education. We don't want to pay for the full education, which I know can be very controversial, especially in the US with education being so expensive. But here's our perspective. My husband paid entirely for his full education. Now, he was fortunate that his parents lived near a university that he attended and that he was able to live there for free. And I paid for probably about half of my education, maybe a little bit less. So I really feel that I took my education a lot more seriously because I was putting my own hard-earned money, and I worked full-time and I was very debt averse way back then. And so I didn't take on a lot of debt, and I also took my classes very seriously. And most of the people that I knew in university who had their parents paying for them, there were definitely some who were very, very good go-getters, and I do know people who did very well in school and did not take advantage of the fact that their parents paid for everything. But the vast majority of people who had parents pay for education didn't take their education as seriously as me or my husband did. We are planning on saving for about half of our children's education, so that while we help them out and hopefully reduce the amount of debt they have to take on, but hopefully we raise them so that they will not take on debt and that they will get jobs as teenagers or continue to work part-time in university. That would be my ultimate goal. Like, I don't want my child graduating with debt. We do not see the value in an Ivy League style prestigious school in the US education, especially considering we are Canadians and we can send our kids back to very good schools in Canada because they will be a Canadian as well, and they can get a really good education for way, way cheaper, and have family there. And I mean, I haven't talked to family. This is like years and years away before my child will have to go to university or college. But, you know, I'm sure that it can be arranged that they could stay with someone that we know back in Canada. There's tons of universities there, and we have family that live near all sorts of them. So to compare, a top school in Canada, and I'm probably overestimating at this point, would probably cost about $30,000 for the 4-year bachelor degree. Now, with that being said, the not as good schools and universities, which are still really good, are not that much cheaper. They tend to be around the same price. It might be a few $1,000s more for your entire education. But in the US, to go to a top school, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars for your education. So we just personally don't think it's worth it. So because we have the advantage of our child being a Canadian citizen and easily being able to go back to Canada to go for education, we are only saving for what makes the most sense. As well, this also would cover them going to a less prestigious college within the US too. So it's not like we're completely not allowing them to go to a college here, but if they really want like top-notch education, I would prefer them to go back to Canada, where it is so much cheaper that it's worth their money. We plan on opening this account right when they are born. Now, whether we're going to take out a 529 or any specific education funds, we have not fully discussed yet, and I will do an update video when we decide what type of account we're going to open. And the reason is is that for me, I see the future as being extremely automated and it being a lot more difficult to get jobs. So if automation takes over a lot of jobs, then my child starting a business is probably the better way to go. When you take out 529s or RESPs, which is the equivalent in Canada, you're kind of limiting that money specifically for education. Now you can withdraw the money, but you're not going to get as much back than if you invested it yourself. So there's a good chance we're going to invest the money ourselves so that we have the option if our child has a really good business idea. Now remember, this is our money. We kind of have a little bit of say over, you know, if we're giving this the money, I feel like a parent has a right to have an opinion over what kind of education. If we think they're getting an education that's just not worth it, they either aren't motivated in it or it's just not something that's going to land them a job, we will have the ability to say no, which would be harsh. And I don't really know what we do. This is a long time away. But we also would have the ability to give them money if they have a really good business idea to get them off the ground for their business. Now, once again, it's not a lot of money for businesses. Most successful businesses start off with extremely wealthy people who have a lot of money to put into it. However, if the child wants to stay at home instead of going to university for 4 years and they want to stay at home and build a business and have some money for marketing or materials, etc., then by all means, I want the money to be available to help them in their future career, not necessarily just for their education. As well, keep in mind when I say that we are putting money towards our child's education, we are debt-free and on track still to retire early. If you are someone who is going to struggle to be able to afford your retirement at a reasonable age, saving money for your child's education is probably not the best idea. And there's no reason to feel guilty, although if you feel guilty, it's, you know, you're allowed to feel whatever emotions, but I'm saying you shouldn't feel guilty because your child will have many, many more years to be able to pay off that debt or whatever, whereas, you know, you can't be certain you're going to live to a certain age, and retirement is something that if you could otherwise obtain, it's better. And your child, you don't want to give your child guilt because you can't retire because you sent them to university. Once again, up to you if you would want to decide that, but from my personal opinion, if we couldn't afford to save some money for their university education or to potentially help them with a business, we would not. But if we couldn't afford to save for their university education, we would still raise them with very high financial intelligence that would hopefully have them make the right decision, which might be to get a job when they're a teenager and to work part of the time while in university or college. So if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And remember, no matter what your financial situation is, have a great day.